Today I want to talk about my latest new instrument, the Roland Aerophone AE-10. It's a wind synth, which means it synthesizes playing a wind instrument the same way a digital piano synthesizes playing a real piano. There are other wind synths out there, but this one is different. And in today's video, I want to answer for you the question I had before purchasing this. Can the Roland Aerophone be a valuable practice tool that helps me improve my own saxophone playing when I cannot play the saxophone? Metcalf here from BetterSax.com. Before we get started, do me a favor and drop me one of these right now, and make sure you are subscribed to the channel. When we hit the 200,000 subscriber mark, I'm going to organize a big giveaway contest with lots of great prizes and maybe a surprise or two that you're not going to want to miss out on. I also want to point out that I have absolutely no affiliation with Roland, the company. After I made my video about the Roland Aerophone Mini, which is like this thing's little brother, I sent them a few messages asking if they had seen my video, which has now been seen by about 350,000 other people, and maybe they'd want to send me one of these AE-10s. Well, Roland never answered any of my messages. They never even gave me so much as a like on any of my social media posts. So I went on Amazon and I bought my own. I put a link in the description below in case you want to get one for yourself. If you've got any of the Roland Aerophone instruments, be sure to let us know your experience with them in the comments below. Now, I also own an Akai Iwi and previously owned the now discontinued Yamaha WX wind controller. I've been dabbling in these things like all good saxophone geeks for many years. While I like the Akai Iwi, and I've even used it on gigs in the past, I've always thought of that instrument as something to be learned on its own, not as a tool for helping me practice the saxophone. For me, I never wanted a wind synth to be a separate instrument I had to learn on its own. The limited practice time I've got, I want to dedicate to just the saxophone. So I've always been hoping for a digital wind synth to come along that I could use as a practice tool to help me with my saxophone playing. So instead of watching another hour of Netflix at night, I could actually get some work done towards the things I'm trying to accomplish on the saxophone late at night without bothering anyone. I'm not going to unbox this thing for you and go over all the different features it has. That information is available elsewhere. Instead, I want to point out the ways I think the Roland Aerophone AE-10 can help you get better at playing a real saxophone and the ways it cannot. Now, I know lots of people are opting for instruments like this instead of a real saxophone because I get messages about it all the time. So first off, I'd just like to say, for anyone who's wondering if this thing can replace a real saxophone, the answer is no, absolutely not. If you want to play the saxophone, get a saxophone. This is not like a digital piano, which actually does a pretty good job of replicating what it's like to play a real piano. This will never come remotely close to the sound and feel of playing a real saxophone or other wind instrument for that matter. Yes, it can sound great and be a lot of fun to play, but it'll never be a replacement for the real thing. If you're already playing the saxophone though, you might find the Roland AE-10 to be a fantastic tool like I do. The number one benefit, of course, is the ability to play this thing through headphones, so you can play it anytime, anywhere, as loud as you want, and not bother anybody. It's got an output jack that can be connected to headphones or an amplifier or a mixer. It also has an input jack so you can plug your smartphone, tablet, or computer in and play along with backing tracks, which you'll also hear in the headphones. It's battery powered, but also has a power adapter plug. It even has an onboard speaker, so you can just pick it up and play out loud completely wirelessly. It has an auto off feature as well. The thing that makes this instrument different from other wind synths is that it follows the key layout of the saxophone exactly. You've got the palm keys, the pinky keys, you've even got the side keys and a front F key, just like on a real saxophone. The keys are also mechanical, which means they move and offer some resistance when you action them. They're even shaped like saxophone key touches, so the feeling is pretty natural. This is the real game changer for me. It means that whatever technique work I do on the Aerophone is going to transfer directly to a real saxophone, since essentially it's the same exact movement. You can even program in your own personal customized altissimo fingerings, the same as you use on a real saxophone. So, can my practice on the Aerophone transfer over to a real saxophone? I've tested this out. I've taken a brand new pattern, new to me, that I've never played before, and I've worked it out in all the keys on the Aerophone. And then when I went to practice the saxophone, the pattern was there under my fingers, ready to play. Of course, it doesn't feel the same as my saxophone does, but it's close enough that the time put in has real value, at least for my technique. I find the Aerophone to be even less forgiving when it comes to finger glitches, so it forces you to play with a certain degree of accuracy. It will, of course, take a little bit of getting used to, since the keys are all very uniform in their resistance as well as the distance that they travel when you press them. Overall, I think they did a pretty good job with this. As you can see, when I press a key down, there's a firm cushion, but then there's some give, which allows room for an extra squeeze. I suppose this helps make the keys feel a bit more natural, but this is definitely an area I think could be further developed to help improve the playing experience. It would also be great to be able to adjust the tension of the keys, since I would like it to be a little bit less resistant. So practicing scales and patterns is going to be time well spent on the Aerophone, in case you can't put that time in on a real saxophone for some reason. Of course, you're still going to want to practice that stuff with a metronome the same way you would on any instrument. One of the things I talk a lot about in my online courses and lessons is learning to play song melodies by ear, and this is another area where the Aerophone can help you improve. If I'm learning a new tune, for example, I can play through the melody on this thing and it's going to transfer over to the saxophone. And the same thing goes for learning and practicing chord changes, which is something else I do with the Aerophone. I'll often open up the iReal Pro app or a backing track and play through tunes that I already know to keep them fresh or just to have fun. I find that when I'm improvising over chord changes with the Aerophone, I don't play all the same ideas that I find myself playing on the saxophone, so somehow it actually helps me be a little bit more creative. Now for the bad news. Probably the most important aspect of your saxophone playing is your sound, and that's something that the Aerophone is not going to help you with at all whatsoever. So if you want to develop as a saxophone player, you still need to put in time every day on the real thing. You need to develop your embouchure strength and flexibility, as well as your tone and intonation. The mouthpiece on the Aerophone is also different in that it's set up to mimic a bit the way a real saxophone mouthpiece works. You see, it's got this plastic reed which moves and bends and is pressure sensitive. So you can do things like play with your own vibrato and bend notes similar to how you would on a real saxophone. I think they've done a fairly good job with this, but it's another area that could use some more refinement and development. There are tons of settings to fiddle with and customize on this thing, and honestly, I am still working with that and looking for the best setup for each different sound and for my personal playing style. When it comes to articulation, I find it reacts quite well to tonguing, surprisingly. Having this plastic reed here kind of helps that feel more natural, feel like you're actually playing the saxophone. However, I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's going to help you with your articulation or tonguing on a real saxophone. You can also customize the resistance level for the air, meaning that you could make it require more or less air to get a sound out and change the amount of air it takes to get the loudest or softest sounds on the instrument. I imagine that can have a positive impact on breath control for saxophone players, but once again, you need to work with a real saxophone and a real mouthpiece to learn how to control that airstream effectively. When it comes to the built-in sounds on the Aerophone, I find a lot of them to be quite good, but I still can't get on with the synth saxophone sounds. That's why I like to play on the muted trumpet or the harmonica. Also, I like some of the organ sounds. I also like the synth lead sounds. In case the folks at Roland ever watch this video, here are a few of my suggestions for how I think they can improve this instrument. First, the bis key is a little bit too far away from the B key. That should be closer. And the front F key is way too far away from the B key. That should be much closer. Also, there's not enough drainage in the mouthpiece. When you play this for a while, the water vapor turns into water spit and fills up this mouthpiece. There's a hole in the bottom where it's supposed to drain out, but I find it just kind of fills up with water and it kind of goes everywhere. That's what this thing is for, to catch the water, to keep it from dripping into the mechanisms. I think they could do a better job getting that water to come out the bottom. Earlier I mentioned that it would be nice to be able to adjust the tension of the keys. Another thing that they could add are rollers, like we have on saxophones, between the E flat and C key and over here on the left-hand pinky stack. So to answer the original question, can the Aerophone help me improve my own saxophone playing? The answer is yes, but only if you're still practicing a real saxophone every day. Otherwise, your sound and embouchure control are going to suffer too much and offset any technical gains you might make. As I said earlier, this cannot replace a real saxophone, but if for some reason you can't play a real saxophone, this thing can be a lot of fun, and I could definitely recommend getting one. The Roland Aerophone AE-10 sells for about $850, and although that's quite expensive, I think it's a pretty fair value considering how well it works and the infinite playing possibilities it offers. There's a link in the description in case you want to pick one up for yourself. If you're looking for some more lessons on how to get started playing melodies by ear and even improvising solos, click the link in the description below for my free Play Sax by Ear crash course. Try that out. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Don't forget to let me know in the comments below your experiences with the Roland Aerophone and other wind synths. Thanks so much for watching, and see you in the next video.